Welcome to NFL World, or welcome to the Webplay Podcast. I'm your host Jacob. Lucas could not be here this week, so we're going solo once again. Now, we're going to get into the Belichick news. We're going to get into all of that. We're not going to do a recap like we did this past week. We're going to do the recap of the Thursday night game. But we're going to also talk about the Devondre Campbell situation. Let's first begin with the game. So, the score for the Rams 49ers game was 12-6. It was a field goal fest. But I said this during the game. Even though the score said 12-6 or 9-6 or even 6-6 when it was 6-6, it didn't feel that. It didn't feel like there was a domination. It just felt like it. Yes, it was raining, but it felt like it was a drop back passing game, which is not what the 49ers want. You saw that when Brock Purdy had to drop back and just throw the ball, it didn't work. And I've been looking on my phone all today, last night, and the general consensus for this 49er team is, with that performance from the 49ers, how can you pay a guy like Brock Purdy? And it's a fair question, because he is a decent quarterback. He is. It's just, you need to have everything right. You need the right coach, which you do have. I don't think firing Shanahan does anything for you. It just doesn't. You can say he lost the locker room, but Brock Purdy could not exist or coexist with anybody else. Because they need the perfect ground game. They haven't had that. McCaffrey's been out. Jordan Mason also out. Deebo Samuel has not played up to his level of expectation. He's been frustrated with the way he's been utilized. And he made that public, and that's not a good thing either. And then when he did make it public, he didn't play well yesterday. You can't say, I want the ball, and then not produce. It doesn't work. You can't. Your offensive line hasn't played well because of injuries. Your defense hasn't played that great because of injuries. It's a very injury-riddled team. Your number 2 receiver is out because of an injury. Like, these things keep happening to you. It's an ask and answered situation. It's time-tested, tried and true that if you don't have a quarterback, and I'm not going to even say, well, it needs to be Patrick Mahomes. I'm just going to say you don't have a quarterback that can consistently get you out of these situations. It's not going to be easy for you. And I posed this question to myself today, and I was wondering if Kyle Shanahan had a drop back passer, not a play action passer, a guy like a Baker Mayfield, a guy like a Mahomes, an Allen, could he or would he be better? Would they have won a Super Bowl? And I can't say no to that, and I can't say yes to that, because I can't say yes because I can't say no to it because we haven't seen it. We haven't seen him with a drop back passer since Matt Ryan. And we can't say yes because then they would have already done it. But I'm just saying, look through the list of quarterbacks that he's had. It's not a good list. Just even the last 2 years, it's not a good list. You go back 2 years. Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, Brock Purdy. It's not a good list. He hasn't played well. Brock Purdy hasn't. But the team is injured. But it's also saying, if not everything is right, it won't work. And that's kind of what Brock Purdy is. If I have Deebo, if I have Ayuk, if I have Kittle, if I have McCaffrey, and I have a great offensive line, and I have a great defense, we'll be good. But you look at any quarterback in the NFL, you give him that coach, that scheme, with that team, doesn't matter. They're going to make it work. That's the issue with the 49ers. They are too based on the team is great, the scheme is great, but if they get injured and there starts to be some sleight of hand in any way, it falls apart. That's because you don't have a veteran that's been there, done it, and been successful. So that's simple. Now, to the Devondre Campbell situation. I was watching the game. I didn't see Devondre Campbell walk off. So I actually had to look Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it now, to find the video. And it was mostly, I don't watch that, what they call Nightcap on Prime Video. I don't watch it. And they said, he quit on his team. And that's the general consensus of the locker room, too. I'll say what Shanahan said before. I'll say what Charvarius Ward said, what George Kittle said. And I thought both of them were very truthful, and both of them really tried to explain every bit of that situation. Shanahan said Campbell didn't want to go in the third quarter. Didn't want to play, didn't want to go in. Get to that. He also said later that, he said this today, Campbell would not be traveling, or is not expected to travel with the team in this Week 16 matchup. But he also said he doesn't anticipate Devondre Campbell playing with the 49ers again this season. I think that says how frustrated he is. In the nicest way possible. It showed how frustrated he was. Campbell left in the third quarter. Before I get to what Kittle and Ward said, I want to lay the groundwork. In this game, Dre Greenlaw came back. He was activated from his 21-day window from injured reserve. So this was his first game back. The general consensus of how Dre Greenlaw played was he's like, I saw it this way, either Dre Greenlaw heals differently than Kirk Cousins, or Dre Greenlaw had a different surgeon who did the surgery right. Because he looks unbelievable. Part of that is because he came back in December and Kirk Cousins came back in September, but I digress. But Dre Greenlaw did look incredible. He played out of his mind. That's also part of this. Because they brought in Devondre Campbell to take the place of Dre Greenlaw when Greenlaw was injured with the Achilles. That's why he was there. Well, now Greenlaw's back. Campbell doesn't need to play. You're not going to play two linebackers at the same position. You're just not going to do that. So Campbell was going to sit. Didn't take it too kindly. Well, later in the game, in about the third quarter, Dre Greenlaw kind of got a little nicked up. Probably with a little gas, too. So he was taken out of the game, and he ended up not returning to the game. That is the moment that they said, okay, Devondre, go in. And he didn't want to go. That's a mentality thing. So that's the groundwork of this whole situation. Let's start with what George Kittle said. George Kittle called Devondre Campbell outright a quitter on the team, a quitter on fans, a quitter on the coach. And you can understand that. Charvarius Ward went through a little more of he said a little bit more. He said something about how, and I'm going to curse here, and I don't curse mostly on this show, or I try not to. He said, that is bullshit, that's unacceptable. That shit's unacceptable. And it is. It's unacceptable. You don't want that in your locker room. Which is why Charvarius Ward then said he'll get cut soon. What Shanahan said, that he doesn't foresee Campbell being on the team or playing the rest of the year, is pretty much exactly what Charvarius Ward said, just not the same wording. That's what they described it as. Devondre Campbell is not a rookie. He's not a second-year player. He's been in the NFL a long time. He knows what this makes him look like. This makes him look bad. Now, is this his last ever game? Who knows? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Maybe we see him on another team, and then we see him next year. Who knows? I think he's a good football player. But that didn't look good. That part didn't look good. Is this a late? The only other situation I can even connect this to is the late, great Vontae Davis. When Vontae Davis signed with the Bills that offseason, and at some point in the season, when he was playing with the Bills, said, yeah, I'm done. And he walked out. It was halftime. He walked out. He just retired. He left. That was it. I don't know if it's that. I do know, though, they didn't want him on the sideline. And they walked him off. So, who knows exactly what's going on. But this was not a good situation to be in. And I'm expecting that that's the general consensus of that locker room. Is why would Devondre do that? It's one of those mysteries we don't know. We don't know. Now, let's move into the news that kind of shocked fans, I guess. It happened Tuesday. So I get a notification on my phone and on everything I own. It says Belichick and North Carolina are meeting again and trying to further along this deal. We said that we said this last week, Belichick was surprised that he didn't get as much exposure, I guess, with the NFL teams. That he was expecting NFL owners, GMs, executives to call him and say, hey, we may have an opening in the offseason, so sit tight. And that didn't happen. At least not to Belichick's idea of that it would happen. So they started furthering this contract with North Carolina. And then I started seeing things from Jordan Schultz and all that. But I didn't take it completely seriously until later that night. I get a notification. And you know how the NFL does the notification? It has it looks like the light in the back of a hockey goalie's net. When that starts flashing, it looks like that. That's their breaking news night that they have go off. And it said Belichick to University of North Carolina. Done deal. Now, they do the press conference. Belichick's up there. He's holding up his father's sweatshirt that he wore when his father was at North Carolina. It was a whole thing. I think we need to talk about this. The exposure of Belichick. Also the fact, we've said it here before, we'll say it again, and we'll say it till we're blue in the face. The concern about Belichick wasn't his age. Wasn't that he couldn't coach. It was the fact they didn't know how long he could. And if they would be set up with an assistant that they didn't know if he could do the job. They didn't want the band back together. They didn't want that. It made no sense for them to do it. That's what they're talking about. But I can tell you, as a team that thought their coach might get fired and Belichick might be even brought in, I was not against the Belichick decision. I would be against the assistant's decision because I don't want to bring in a Josh McDaniels. I don't want to bring in a Joe Judge. I don't want to bring in Matt Patricia. You can bring in a Patriot assistant that's in the NFL currently, like a Brian Flores. You can't. You absolutely can't. Mike Vrabel, even though he wasn't really a Belichick assistant, he played for Belichick. You could do that. You can't. You couldn't afford to bring in like a McDaniels, a Patricia, a Judge. You couldn't. A Joe Judge. You can't bring in that. You can't have that happen. So was that a missed opportunity to bring in Belichick? Probably. But I think that was a concern. I think they asked him, Belichick, if we even think that you could have plays as the coach, who would be the assistants? We're not actually interviewing you, but who would be the assistants? I guarantee you he said Josh and Matt. Josh McDaniels and Matt Patricia. And every team said, nope, not happening. We've seen that. Not that we've seen it good, we've seen it really good, but we've seen it really bad too. And that's the reason. We've seen it really bad. It's not, they didn't want to do it. But it was also that second part. How long would Belichick coach? Because that's what's indicative of this contract. It's licensed up as a 5-year contract. It's not. It's a 3-year contract. Let me explain. 3 years guaranteed, meaning he's going to coach there 3 years. Part of the contract, part of the thing that he went to North Carolina, the demands he brought was his son, Steve Belichick, who we talked about on NFL World this week. He's the defensive coordinator for the Washington Huskies. He wanted his son Steve to be the head coach in waiting, meaning when I'm done, Steve's the guy. They did the same thing, remember, with Gerard Mayo? When I'm done, he's the guy. That's what they did. And that's indicative, because that's what they just did. It's showing, I'm guaranteed here 3 years. And then I'm out. I'm out. It's Steve's job. And I think that's more important to really look at. I'll be here 3 years. But then at the end of that time frame, whether we win a championship or we don't, I'm done. And it's Steve's turn. And he gets a D1 program. That's why. That's why it was done. It's that simple. And I don't think NFL teams wanted to hear that. That's just my opinion. Okay. Let me grab this really quick. So the NFL had a meeting. Actually, let's do this. Let's do this first. So, happened this morning. I get the notification. It says the the Miami Dolphins, the Miami Dolphins have released Odell Beckham Jr. It's a mutual parting of ways. And I wasn't shocked by it. I wasn't shocked. That was my reaction. I'm like, I'm not shocked by this at all. I don't know how to react to this, except with the phrase, he doesn't fit. That's it. That's the only thing I can come back to. He didn't fit. Their team is all about speed. Speed, speed, speed. That's not Odell's game. He's not a speedster. He's a good receiver still. He's not a speedster. What are places he could land? I don't know. Buffalo, maybe. Maybe he goes to Detroit. That would be unlikely, I think. Possibly San Francisco. I think the thing with OBJ, it's going to be if he can get into the play. Again, he's going to do what he did with the Rams, where he could go, have a chance to win. Maybe that is with the Rams. Maybe he goes back. Maybe that's if he goes to a team like Baltimore. Maybe he goes back to Baltimore. You don't know. He didn't fit in Miami. It's a speed team. He's not the fastest guy. Doesn't work. Let's get back to what I was trying to say before. So, the NFL had their league meetings this week, and it wasn't they were talking about potentially the competition committee going to try and replay more penalties. So you could throw flags on a replay, like a face mask or whatever. And that's kind of what they're doing. They're going to talk about it at the game, the competition committee, but it also needs to be brought up here too. The competition committee. Let me see if I can find it. I lost it. Let's see. Okay, here it is. The NFL plans to, again, competition committee plans to talk about the removal of the onside kick. They're calling it a dead play. Here's the reason it's a dead play, though. This is NFL's doing. This is the NFL's problem. The dynamic kickoff. That's the problem. The dynamic kickoff is the reason that this exists. Not entirely, but there's a good reason. Because the dynamic kickoff, your guys are so far ahead of you. So the kicker just has to kick off, and then either the returner gets it at the 30, in the end zone, or he gets to the 40 because it doesn't get into the landing zone, or whatever. It is what it is. But the onside kick, you have to call for it. You have to go and say, okay, yeah, we're going to onside now, which ruins the surprise of everything. Now, the NFL has said before, the 4th and 15, 4th and 25, 4th and 20, whatever, is not a bad idea. I don't like it. I don't like it. Here's why I don't like it. Because how does that exactly work? Okay, how does that exactly work? You're going to line them up at the 50? Or where they kick off from normally? It doesn't work, in my opinion. Because if it's incomplete, what's going to happen? If it's incomplete, what's going to happen? What's the rules, too? Is it like a normal play where everyone can rush? Can you only have one person rush? Can no one rush? What's the play? How does that work? To me, I understand it's not a popular play, but I think what they should do, I'm not saying this changes anything. They should make it so the ball doesn't have to be on a tee. What I mean by that is the ball doesn't even need to be on the ground. It can be. You open this up like a safety. So what happens is after a safety, the punter goes out, he holds the ball, and he kicks the ball in the air. Okay? You allow that. You can allow that. So, and it teaches these teams, okay, we can do onside with our kicker, or we could have our punter learn how to do it. Because if our punter learns how to do it, they won't be shocked if, hey, their kicker's not going out, the punter's coming out. Okay, they're going to try to hold it instead. That's what they should do. They won't, but they should. It's my opinion. Now, I want to see if I can find it again. Let's see where I can find it. Hang on. Okay, here we go. We'll go with this one. So, Broncos have signed left tackle Garrett Bowles to a new 4-year contract. Let me grab the actual amount of money. 4-year contract extension. It is a 4-year deal. Let me see. 4-year. Oh, wait, no, that's the last one. It doesn't have the. Hang on. Let me grab the money. It's here. Oh, it is. Okay. Actually, no, I have it right here. 4-year deal, $82 million contract extension. So there you go. He is one of the better pass protectors. Not having him out there would have been the worst thing for a young quarterback can get. So Garrett Bowles back helps out Bo Nix exponentially. Before we go into Week 15, we must talk about. Let me see if I can find it. Tee Higgins. So Tee Higgins has signed a new agent. The reason I say this is it's important to say that Tee Higgins signed with, I'm going to butcher this name and I apologize, Rocky Achina. Now, if you haven't heard of that name, that is Ja'Marr Chase's agent. Ja'Marr Chase said earlier he wishes he could sign T himself. Both Higgins and Chase are looking for new contracts. This is what happens when you draft well. When you draft well, you have a chance. You got this opportunity where you got two guys who have to sign. And Ja'Marr, it's no doubt that Ja'Marr's the better player. And he's more the focal point of the offense. There's no doubt. It's just that T. Higgins also wants high money. He just took a franchise tag of $20 million. We talked about this in the offseason. He took a franchise tag of $21 million. He was not going to go under that. No way. He's not going to go under that now. So meaning you're going to pay Ja'Marr probably 30, a little over 30, and you're going to pay T. Higgins at least 25. It's a lot of money that you don't have. And the Bengals have been known as a team in past years where they're a little cheap when it comes to these things. Will they be able to pay? This is the same thing we said last year about the Chiefs. Chris Jones, L'Jarius Sneed, they had to make a choice. And they had to trade. And they traded L'Jarius. Probably the right choice, but they had to do it. The Bengals are in the same crossroads. Do we pay Ja'Marr top dollar, knowing we are going to probably have to do the same thing for T. Higgins, and would he accept less to be here? The answer this past offseason was unlikely. Maybe those bridges can be mended. Maybe they can't. It needs to be asked. Before we go, we got two things in the news cycle. One thing we'll talk about before, but we're going to talk about the Chiefs first. So the Chiefs, Hollywood Brown, they have opened Hollywood Brown's practice window. So he's able to return to practice after missing all year with an SC joint issue where he had surgery He went with doctors. They cleared him. When should he come back? Because they opened it today. When should he come back? Not this week, and possibly not next week. You want to get him ready for Pittsburgh? Fine. I think you have him ready for the last 2 weeks of the year. Don't think about it. And opening it now, so that this is day 1, you have almost 3 weeks to get this ready. And you play 3 games in 11 days. So you should be okay. If it was me, though, I would have waited till Monday just to give you more time. But that's me. Let's get into the games. So, week 15 in the NFL. Let me get this off real quick. Ravens at Giants plus 16. So it's actually gone down. It was 16.5. 42.5 is the over-under. Give me the Ravens. They're going to crush the Giants. I think the score is going to be. They might get 42 themselves, so it's not. I'm going to be completely honest with it. The score is going to be 38 to. I'll say 38 to 10. Make it somewhat respectable. Next up, Cowboys at Panthers. Panthers favored by 2.5. The first time the Panthers have been favored in 2 years. 43 is the over-under. So Dallas at 5-8, it's unlikely to get in. Panthers are scrappy. Panthers' run defense isn't great. So it's going to be one of those weird games. Give me the Panthers to win. They're going to win 24-21. Next up, Chiefs at Browns. Browns favored by Browns game +4. Over-under is 43. We've said this about the Chiefs. They play strange games, man. They don't. The over-unders are strange, and they almost like they don't clear them at times. It's weird. I think the same thing is said here. I'm actually going with the upset. Give me the Browns. Jameis Winston always finds a way to pull these strange games out. I don't know why, he just does. Give me the Browns. I think Myles Garrett has a big day with the tackles of the Chiefs, so give me the Browns to win and an upset victory 24-21 as well. Next up, we got an unbelievable game. Bills at Lions. 2.5. The over-under is 54.5. They are going to smash that. It's going to be an awesome game. Give me the Lions to win 38-35. Because it's just going to be one of those games. Revenge game for Von Miller. He got hurt on this field. I'm expecting him to play well. But give me the Lions 38-35. Next up, Patriots at Cardinals. Cardinals favored by 6. Give me the Cards. It's not even going to be a close game. Give me it 28-14. Next up, Steelers at Eagles. Eagles favored by 5.5. The Steelers are trying to end a 59-year skid against the Eagles. The last time the Steelers beat the Eagles in Philadelphia, you have to go back to 1965. To be perfectly honest, Coach Nolan, you have Mike Nolan, who is, I believe he was from the area, but Coach Chuck Noll wasn't even the coach yet. He only became the coach in 68. So that's the last time anyone. Give me the Steelers. They play a weird style, and it always gets everyone off guard. Give me the Steelers. I'm watching this game, though. Give me the Steelers. In a weird game, 24-17. You don't know how. It's not going to be even that far away of a deficit, but it's going to feel like forever. That's how they operate. Next up, Tampa at Chargers. Chargers favored by 3. We'll see if Bucky Irving goes. He should be all right. Chargers don't really have any receivers. We'll see if Ladd McConkey is ready to go. I'm going to take the Chargers to find a way to win this, and I think they might. Chargers win an odd game, 20-17. And that is it for the What to Play podcast. Let me know in the comment who you have winning this week. Also, this will be the question of the day, how many upset victories do we have in week 15 of the NFL season? For What to Play podcast, I'm Jacob Hubert. and we'll see you next week.